Real estate never fails. Good luck. That was the message Darren sent me, 4 words and a full stop that detonated my entire life. I was standing in our kitchen in Tucson, Arizona, sipping tea by the bay window when it landed. My fingers were steady, but my chest felt like it had cracked open. 15 years. 15 years of cautious, relentless, meticulous planning. Gone in a single text. I stared at the screen. For a moment, I actually thought I was reading it wrong. Some prank. Some autocorrect nightmare. But there it was again when I blinked. Moved our savings to Sky's real estate venture. She's ambitious. Unlike you, we're going to flip houses together. I'm Veronica Hale. I'm 45 years old. I've been the financial architect of our lives since the day Darren and I got married. While he charmed clients over martinis and closed 6-figure sales with a wink and a handshake, I was the one translating those commissions into long-term wealth. I tracked our accounts with the precision of a Wall Street trader. Retirement secured, emergency fund 6 figures, real estate equity locked in and climbing. He used to brag about it. My wife's a genius with money. I just bring it in, she makes it grow. But all that respect had started corroding the day he met her. Sky Winters, 28, blonde and loud about her wins. She strutted into our lives during a Trayvant Corporation networking mixer. She sold condos in Phoenix like it made her the next Barbara Corcoran. Darren was dazzled. I was suspicious. At first it was harmless stories how Sky closed on a flipped duplex in Scottsdale, how she helped a retired couple double their investment. But then came the perfume on his shirts after late nights at the office, weekend hunting trips that aligned suspiciously well with Sky's open house tours, and worst of all, the change in tone when he talked to me. Suddenly, my spreadsheets were boring. Our savings were dead money. The stable, diversified portfolio I'd spent years perfecting was now a waste of potential. I'd explain things calmly that markets don't reward impulse, that slow and steady wasn't just a saying, it was a strategy. He'd nod, but I could see it. In his eyes, I'd gone from genius to anchor. Still, I held out hope. Maybe it was a midlife crisis. Maybe he just needed to feel like a cowboy again, chasing risk and return like he was 30. But the day that message came in, I knew better. Because here's the part Darren never understood. I wasn't just good with money. I was dangerously good with contracts, contingency planning, and the kind of legal foresight most people wouldn't bother thinking about. And years ago, when I saw 2 friends blindsided by divorce, I'd had Darren sign a co-control clause, a legal stipulation that neither of us could move major funds without the other's signature. At the time, he'd laughed. "You planning to take me for everything someday," he joked. I'd smiled, just planning to protect what we've built together. Well, guess what? That clause was about to become my atomic button. I put down the tea, opened my laptop, and launched our banking dashboard. First, our joint savings, $87,000 yesterday, now $300. Money market emptied, emergency fund gone. Even the dream fund, the one I'd privately named in my files, the one we were supposed to use for a future lake house, vanished. Then came his second text. "Don't bother calling. We're investing in something real for once. Sky knows how to grow money. Not like you." That one hit deeper. Not because of the betrayal, because of the dismissal. 15 years of shared life reduced to not like you. But I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I walked to the window and stared out at the street we lived on, the quiet suburban oasis we could afford because of my boring choices. Darren thought he'd pulled off the greatest escape ditch the careful wife chased some shiny new dream and fund it with my intelligence. He had no idea what storm was coming. Because the thing about building wealth over time is you learn patience, precision, the power of staying 3 steps ahead. And right now, I was about to prove that boring old Veronica wasn't just the brains of this relationship, she was the storm he never saw coming. I didn't call Darren. I didn't scream. I didn't ask questions I already knew the answers to. Instead, I opened a password-protected folder on my desktop. Inside, it was a PDF titled Contingency Legal 2023, 6 months ago, over lunch with an old college friend who'd just been blindsided by her husband's affair, I'd asked her a single question that stuck with me. "What would you have done differently?" She'd looked me in the eye and said, "Prepared for war." That night, I called Judith Brennan, the most ruthless divorce attorney in Tucson. Not because I suspected Darren of cheating, but because I'd seen too many smart women blindsided, left broke, humiliated, powerless. I never wanted to be one of them. Judith had charged me a $1,000 consultation fee. Darren had scoffed when he saw the transaction on our credit card. "You paying someone to fantasize about divorcing me now?" He'd laughed. I'd kissed his cheek and said, "Just playing it safe." That laugh. It echoed in my head now as I pulled Judith's card from the folder and dialed her number. My hands didn't shake, not even a little. She answered on the second ring. "Brennan Law. This is Veronica Hale. We met in January." There was a pause. "Then I remember you. What happened?" "My husband just stole our life savings, transferred it to his girlfriend's personal bank account. I want to go nuclear." Judith didn't even blink. "How much are we talking?" $87,000 in savings. Another 60 maybe in other accounts. I'll send the full ledger. Can you be in my office within the hour?" I was already grabbing my purse. While I drove, I rehearsed everything in my head. The transfers, the text messages, the photos, the silence, the cruelty. All of it. Judith's office was on the 12th floor of a sleek downtown building, glass and stone, minimalist, intimidating. It was quiet when I walked in. Saturday, quiet, private, exactly what I needed. She was already waiting in her office with a legal pad and 2 cups of coffee. "Show me everything," she said. I slid my laptop across the desk, opened the banking records, and handed over my phone. Darren's smug text stared back from the screen. Judith scrolled slowly, pausing at his second message, the one where he told me not to bother calling. Her mouth didn't move, but her eyebrows twitched just slightly. That was enough. "Your husband made several critical errors," she said, pen flying across her notepad. "He left a digital trail. He moved funds to a non-business account. And most importantly, he documented intent in writing. This isn't just marital misconduct, it's financial abuse." My throat clenched, but not from sadness. From something else, something far more dangerous. Rage wrapped in strategy. Judith leaned forward. "Here's what we're going to do. First thing Monday, I'll file for emergency relief to freeze all remaining joint accounts. We'll also request a temporary restraining order blocking him from touching any marital assets. And," her smile sharpened, "we're serving his girlfriend with a civil lawsuit, accepting marital funds under false pretenses. That's civil theft. If we can prove intent, we may be able to recover everything." I blinked. "Wait, you mean we can go after her too?" Judith nodded. "Absolutely. And the fact that the funds went into her personal checking account instead of a business one, that's a massive red flag. This isn't a business venture. It's a cash grab, which means we go for both of them." It was like something snapped into place in my chest. I wasn't just fighting back. I was about to win. Judith's next instructions were rapid-fire pull Darren's company records dates, trips reimbursements, gather screenshots of all social posts from him and Sky during the so-called hunting weekend, compile all communications showing he bypassed the co-control clause we'd signed years ago, dig into Sky's business license. If there was no LLC or official company, even better. We were going to build a financial fortress out of his lies. And then she said something that truly flipped the switch in my head. "By Monday afternoon, both Darren and Sky will receive legal notifications. But here's the beauty: if Sky posts anything publicly in the meantime, any luxury purchases, any mentions of the transfer, it becomes evidence." A chill ran down my arms. I suddenly realized they had no idea how much trouble they were in. I left Judith's office with a war plan. But more than that, I left with hope. The kind I hadn't felt in a year. The kind that didn't whisper survival. It shouted justice. Darren once told me that technology was ruining real adventure, that real men didn't post their lives online. Apparently, real men also didn't realize that while they were crafting lies, their girlfriends were tagging locations and uploading stories in real time. By Sunday morning, while Darren pretended to be deep in the wilderness on a hunting trip with no signal, I was building a digital evidence trail that would not only shred his alibi, but expose his girlfriend as a willing accomplice. I started with his Instagram. Thursday night, a photo of his hunting gear laid out on our bed with the caption, "Locked and loaded for the wild." Friday, nothing. No posts, no check-ins. Smart, I thought. He was keeping it clean. But then Saturday hit. Saturday afternoon, just 2 hours after he texted me, we're investing in something real. He posted a picture of a lobster tail wine glass and gold-plated cutlery. The caption, "Sometimes the hunting lodge surprises you," except that hunting lodge looked suspiciously like La Plume, a luxury fusion restaurant in downtown Santa Fe that I personally had bookmarked on Yelp last year. My heart beat calmly as I saved the image. Then I moved on to Sky. If Darren had any subtlety, she had none. Her Instagram story was a parade of Ego champagne glasses clinking in a penthouse suite, a blurry shot of Darren's face across a fancy dinner table, a caption that read, "To big moves and fresh starts." The timestamp, Saturday 5:13 p.m. Same time Darren told me he was tracking elk in the rain. I recorded it all, screenshots, metadata, even the room's geolocation tags, all admissible, all damning. By the time I closed my laptop that night, I'd built an airtight timeline of lies. Darren said he was in the woods with a rifle, but in reality he was sipping wine and signing over our future. What neither of them knew was that this wasn't just evidence, it was leverage. Sunday evening, he finally called. "Hey babe," he said. Voice cheerful, a little too cheerful. "I got some good news. Bradley got a huge buck today. I think I'm finally getting the hang of this." There was a pause, that fake energy crackling through the phone like static. The guides think we've tracked an elk. Might stay another day, head home Tuesday. Translation. More time to wine and dine with Sky. More time to celebrate what he thought was a clean escape. I smiled into the phone. "Oh, that's wonderful. Take all the time you need. Just make sure you post some good photos. Your friends will want to see proof." The line went quiet. Not dead, just caught. See, Darren had crafted this perfect narrative. He was the adventurous husband blowing off steam in the wild. But in doing so, he forgot that the digital world keeps receipts. And unlike him, I never delete anything. After we hung up, I began organizing the photos into folders. Hunting lie, Darren luxury posts, Sky timeline, Saturday theft. I labeled every piece, dated them, cross-checked them with his text messages. Everything matched. At 11:47 p.m., I uploaded the files into a private Dropbox folder and shared it with Judith. Her email reply was instant. "This is perfect." The contradiction between his claim of being unreachable and the posts proves intent to deceive. We can now argue premeditation. Premeditation. I sat back and let that word sink in. This wasn't just betrayal. This wasn't a man getting swept away by lust or greed. This was a strategic theft disguised as a romantic investment. And he never thought I'd be smart enough or calm enough to catch it. But I'd spent 15 years managing wealth. I knew how to trace paper trails, interpret transactions, and spot inconsistencies faster than most auditors. Darren thought he'd won because he got to the money first. What he didn't know was that I'd just built a legal trap so tight he was going to trip over it on his way home. Monday morning arrived with surgical precision. I was outside Judith Brennan's law office by 6:58 a.m. Coffee in one hand and a neatly tabbed folder in the other one labeled Asset Recovery, Phase 1. Inside was everything Darren's texts. The screenshots of his lavish Santa Fe dinner, Sky's incriminating Instagram stories, and our full financial breakdown. Every transaction, every timestamp. Judith didn't just want receipts, she wanted ammunition, and I brought enough to start a legal war. At 7:30 a.m. on the dot, her assistant opened the door. He's not going to know what hit him, she said with a small smile. By 10:12 a.m., Judith had already filed emergency motions with the family court, every remaining joint account frozen, a temporary restraining order submitted barring Darren from accessing or transferring any marital assets. The judge granted a rush hearing for later that week, by 12:03 p.m. A subpoena hit Travant Corporation requesting all records related to Darren's PTO expense reports and any company-provided travel accommodations. Judith had even added a note requesting all networking receipts tied to Sky Winters. But the knockout punch came at 2:17 p.m. when a process server personally handed Sky Winters a civil lawsuit. The charge, civil theft and receipt of misappropriated marital assets. The amount demanded $87,000 in direct transfers, $18,000 in estimated damages, plus legal fees and restitution. She hadn't even had time to finish her mimosa. Judith called me right after. Her boyfriend may have told her she was starting a real estate empire, she said coolly, but all she bought was a legal nightmare. I wanted to laugh. I wanted to. But more than anything, I felt calm, in control, focused. I had watched Darren systematically dismantle the life we'd built, and now I was rebuilding it brick by brick, by taking him apart. Calls started rolling in by late afternoon. First, the bank fraud department. We've flagged suspicious activity connected to your accounts, multiple large withdrawals, unusual destination accounts. You may be asked to testify in upcoming proceedings. Second, Travant Corporation's HR team. Hi, Mrs. Hale, we've received a subpoena. Darren didn't list you as an emergency contact. Should we direct inquiries to your attorney third? And most satisfying was Bradley Morrison, Darren's supposed hunting buddy, Veronica. I don't want to start anything, he began cautiously, but... Is Darren okay? Why do you ask? I said, keeping my voice light. Well, it's just... Someone from a law office called me asking about our weekend in the mountains. But Darren didn't come. He said he had a family emergency and couldn't make the trip. So, just wondering what's going on. I smiled so hard my cheeks hurt. Thanks, Bradley. That clears up so much. By dinner time, I had 5 calls from unknown numbers, likely from Sky, her panicked lawyer, or Darren himself. I didn't answer. Judith advised I wait until formal contact came through channels. But I did open one text just for fun. It was from Darren, timestamped 5:41 p.m. Trying to use the debit card, but something's wrong with our account. Did you mess with the bank? I stared at the message for a moment, letting the delicious silence sit between us. Then I typed back, I'm sure it's just some unusual activity flag. You know how banks are. No emojis, no punctuation, just clinical indifference. He replied instantly. What activity? I need gas money. There's something seriously wrong. I let it sit unread. Because here's the thing. The man who once called me the brain behind our empire had now become a man frantically texting his soon-to-be ex-wife. For gas money. Let that sink in. He called from the highway, his voice tight with forced calm, like a salesman pretending not to sweat through his collar. Hey, Veronica, I think there's something wrong with the bank. I sipped my tea. Oh yeah, he rushed. I tried to use the card at a gas station in Las Cruces and it just declined. Said there was a restriction on the account. A pause. I let it breathe. I wanted him to feel the silence. Well, banks get nervous these days, I replied smoothly. Probably flagged something for review. Maybe some large transfers. You know how they are. His breathing shifted. I could hear him processing. What large transfers, he asked too quickly. Oh, I don't know, I said, feigning a shrug he couldn't see. Maybe that wire to your girlfriend's personal account. That did it. Silence again, but this time it was different. Heavy, charged. The air between us practically crackled. You froze our accounts, he accused. Didn't you? You really should have read the co-control agreement more carefully, I replied. You know the one you signed back when you still respected my intelligence? He started to stammer something about overreacting, about how it was just temporary, how we could still talk this through. But I cut him off. Oh, and Darren. He hesitated. Yeah, how was the elk hunting? Those luxury lobster tails looked Delicious. He didn't speak. He didn't have to. I hung up. By the time Darren pulled into our driveway that evening, the sun had dipped low over the desert, casting long shadows across the sidewalk. I was waiting in the living room with a manila folder in my lap, the legal equivalent of a loaded weapon. He walked in, wearing crisp designer hunting gear that looked like it had never seen a day outdoors. His overnight bag thudded onto the hardwood floor, and he stood there like a boy about to be grounded. "We need to talk," he mumbled. "Yes, we do," I said, gesturing calmly to the chair across from me. "Sit." He obeyed reluctantly and glanced at the folder in my lap. "What's that?" "Your real estate education," I said, flipping it open. Lesson 1, don't steal from someone who tracks every decimal point. Lesson 2, don't lie when your girlfriend live streams from luxury hotels. I laid out the screenshots. Sky's Instagram story, his own Santa Fe dinner post, banking records, the texts, the lawsuit filed that morning, the restraining order waiting to be served. He turned pale. "But we were going to build something real," he mumbled. "Sky has connections. This wasn't about you." I raised an eyebrow. Of course it wasn't about me. It was about you. It was always about you. And then I leaned in, voice low and razor sharp. "You thought I was safe, predictable, boring. But here's what you forgot. I've spent 15 years learning how to protect assets. And unfortunately, for you, you were one of them." He stared, mouth opening and closing like a fish, gasping for air. But there were no excuses to save him, no spreadsheets he could charm his way out of. I stood up, folded the file shut, and said the one thing he never expected. "This is just the beginning." Darren didn't sleep at home that night. He left the living room in stunned silence, dragging his overpriced hunting bag behind him like a war trophy turned evidence exhibit. I heard the car start, then silence, then nothing. It was a satisfying kind of quiet. By Wednesday, the courthouse had frozen all remaining joint assets. Sky's attorney, clearly inexperienced in marital asset theft, requested an extension to review the documents. Judith simply smiled and submitted 73 pages of detailed evidence. But what I didn't expect came on Thursday morning, an email from Sky Winters. Subject I didn't know. Please read. I almost deleted it. Almost. But curiosity won. Veronica. I didn't know the money wasn't his to move. Darren said you were separating and he was cashing out a personal investment. I didn't ask for the transfer, he volunteered it, saying he wanted to build something new with me. I've already asked my attorney to initiate a full return of the $87,000. I know that doesn't fix what happened. I just want you to know I'm not fighting this. Sky. I stared at it stunned. Either it was a desperate legal move, or she was telling the truth. Judith, of course, didn't blink. Doesn't matter what she knew. The fact that she's offering full restitution is exactly what we wanted. The civil suit can be settled as long as the check clears, and by Friday it did. Full amount, returned, plus an added $3,000 marked as apology. Judith called it a token. I called it a beginning. I took the check to the bank myself, wearing my navy blazer hair tied up calm but unmissable. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about presence, power, being seen as the woman who wasn't broken, just recalibrating. Over the next month, Judith finalized the legal separation. Darren tried to negotiate, offering hollow apologies, half-hearted pleas about starting over. He even cried in one meeting, but the man who said she's ambitious, unlike you, he no longer had a seat at my table. Instead, I focused on the thing that had always defined me, rebuilding, quietly, intentionally, on my own terms. I transferred part of the recovered money into a newly created fund, the Hale Foundation for Financial Independence, a small initiative to help women, especially married ones, learn how to protect themselves before it's too late. It wasn't grand, but it was mine. One day, at a community seminar, I hosted a young woman lingered after class. She looked maybe 30. Sharp, tired eyes. She said, "My husband always tells me I wouldn't survive without him." I smiled. Then it's time to prove him wrong before you have to. When I got home that night, I stood by the kitchen window again. Same place I'd been when Darren's text detonated everything. But now the air was still, the future wide open. He thought he was taking our next chapter with him. What he didn't realize? I write my own endings.